What are the things that are giving you an accent when you speak in American English? Guys, we are about to take a look at files that you send and give you some feedback. Hello, hello. My name is Jeff. It rhymes with breath. That's one of the four keys to a natural sound in American English, including placement, pitch, breath, trying to weaken your consonant sounds in order to strengthen your vowel sounds. And we have some more files that people sent in over the weekend for us to take a look at. Again, every show we take a look at 2 files that you send in. If you would like to send in files to get reviewed during our show, then you can take a look in the video description. We have a link to a free Telegram group you can join where people send in files. And then if you want to get feedback for yourself every day, there's another more official Telegram group where we handle that purpose. But I have 2 files for us to take a look at. Let's take a look at this first one and see what is happening and what can be done to make it sound even more natural in American English pronunciation.
It's very hard to appreciate something when you don't understand anything about it. And it's fascinating to watch that too.
Okay. Overall, I think this already sounds pretty solid. There are a couple little comments I want to make. Let's listen one more time.
It's very hard to appreciate something when you don't understand anything about it. And it's fascinating to watch that too.
Okay, probably the thing I like the most about this audio is the pattern that's using. This idea of starting at a higher pitch and working your way down. It's like the that's a very common pattern in American English. I just used it right there actually. That's a very common pattern in American English. Like you're going to find it everywhere once you start listening for it. So I'd encourage you to start doing that. I want to pay attention to the second half of this, the part where it starts like it's fascinating.
It's very hard to appreciate something when you don't understand anything about it. And it's fascinating to watch that too.
So that part there, and it's fascinating to watch that too. It's fascinating to watch that too. The one thing I would say is that the distressed words are coming off pretty heavy, right? Because it's like it's fascinating to watch that too, versus like it's fascinating to watch that too. So I think we could potentially tone down the stresses because they are a little bit heavy. That's not to say that you won't find native speakers doing that in some situations, though. Some other things to consider as well. A lot of times when to is added in a phrase that has some excitement and some energy to it, a lot of times that word to also actually go higher in pitch as well. So like instead of doing this,
It's very hard to appreciate something when you don't understand anything about it. And it's fascinating to watch that too.
so you can hear like fascinating to watch that too, versus like fascinating to watch that too. Can you hear the difference? Fascinating to watch that too. Fascinating to watch that too. Because a lot of times the to part oftentimes is the heaviest stress when you add it to phrases like that. So that is one thing I would look at. I also want to look at an element of contrast that I call firmness. It's the difference between, for instance, like talking like this. Right now I'm talking a very firm voice versus like talking like this. Now I'm talking a little bit softer. It's not just about whispering. It's about not going so firm on the voice, not so strong.
It's very hard to appreciate something when you don't understand anything about it.
And you can hear it there, like when you don't understand anything about it. The about it part, you can hear that movement away from firmness to softness. I think that was well done. That would be something I would encourage us to continue, perhaps even doing more of, even in this audio file, is playing around with firmness and softness a bit more. I think there's some more places where we could go soft. All right, but just some quick pieces of feedback there. Thank you so much for sending that file. Keep an eye on your stresses. But overall, I think you're doing some good stuff with the pitch movements. I have a second file for us to take a look at.
But I was always a bit maker. That was my passion. So,
Okay, just going to target this section of the clip. Let's put at it again. And thank you for sending this file, this video as well.
but I was always a bit maker. That was my passion.
Okay. it feels like our placement is very, very high. It feels like we're projecting almost towards our lips, around our teeth area right here. It also feels like we're very tight and closed off through the throat. We're not letting a lot of air move through. So we almost kind of getting a sound like this, which is very far forward and not a lot of breath, versus lower and things like that. So we want to see if we can get more air moving through. You can even try, I would firstly say experimenting with the placements, just trying to move them around. So for instance, understand what it's like when your placement's by the front of your mouth versus when it's in the back of your mouth, versus when it's by your nose versus when it's by your chest. Like for instance, like right now, my placement right now is kind of by my hips, it's by my teeth, and now it's my placement's by my nose. I just shifted a little higher, and now my placement is kind of like back of my mouth, top of my throat, and now my placement's lower, closer to my chest diaphragm area. Okay, and you can kind of hear the difference between those. So that's the first thing I would say is that, hey, do some experiments where we're just moving around the placement to understand what it feels like when it's in different spots. In addition to that, we can do some breath exercises as well. We want to make sure we're feeling our diaphragm. So for instance, if you don't know what your diaphragm is, you're not used to using it or paying much attention to it, what you can do is, I know it's a little bit hard with the camera angle, but like for instance, when you like breathe in and breathe out, try to move this so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, so like if I breathe in, okay, you can see my stomach just expanded, and then when I breathe out, you see my stomach moved in. So basically, when you breathe, that's what you would expect to happen. Hopefully, nothing's wrong with you. Where if you breathe in, your stomach expands, and when you breathe out, it contracts. It's constantly doing that movement. So basically, what you want to happen is when you breathe, you want there to be movement. Your stomach to constantly contract. And when we speak, we're exhaling air. So when we speak, you want kind of just a slow, gradual movement inward. Okay, and that's going to help us achieve a more natural sound. So again, if I just do something like maybe just breathe out really quick, just breathe, just and try extend it for like a solid 3, 4, 5 seconds. Let's do that again. Notice that I'm not like forcing the air out, right? I'm not doing. It's not that hard. It's not like. It's not tight through the throat. Just trying to keep the throat in a neutral position, not engaging muscles. Then you can add, for instance, a vowel sound to that. For instance, like an ah sound. So just like ah. And notice that half of that is still just breath. Again. Okay. Once you feel like you're able to achieve that, or to achieve kind of just a vowel sound while breath moves out, if you have a phrase you're working on, then you can just take some of the sounds from that phrase, just the vowel sounds. So let's see what some of those initial vowel sounds were.
But I was always a bit maker.
Okay, so with this phrase, but I was always a. It's like let's just use the phrase I. So again, breathe in, and then again. Do you understand? And hear that difference? Okay, so we're trying to just kind of experiment doing different placements with that, saying Okay, so moving that around because we just feel very tight with the diaphragm through the throat. Everything's really tight and our placement's really high. Our placement right now really feels like it's close to our mouth and teeth area. That's going to be my biggest piece of feedback for that. We got to get more air through and we got to lower the placement a bit. Okay. What I did just actually remember a final note. I want you to take a look at our friend's face here.
But I was always a bit maker.
We are super like closed off, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. On the channel you can see videos where I've said things like just trying to say entire sentences with like a straight lips, like you can see me doing right now. So notice that the corners of my lips aren't really moving a lot. My lips in general aren't moving a lot. I can do a lot just with this position. Okay, but notice that there was still some space, right, between my top lip and my bottom lip. Look how closed off our mouth is here.
But I was always a bit maker.
Okay, so there's not really a lot of room for the vowels to work with because but I was always a peacemaker, So I would experiment, maybe doing the opposite, experiment with your mouth really wide. It's like I was always a peacemaker, and obviously that's not how we talk, but we gotta get used to that feeling of having more air coming through. Okay, so I'd experiment saying little phrases with an over exaggerated open mouth position to understand what that feels like. I always. Conversely, I would also experiment with the other side, have ultra tight lips, like just to understand what that feels like too when we're too closed off and tense. Okay, so bounce between those. All right, but thanks to everyone who sent in files today. Before we head out, I want to take a look at a couple of questions that were sent to me in the group over the weekend that I think will be helpful for people to get some answers on. In fact, some of these I think we actually may have already addressed. But one question that came in. Okay. They say, I'm sure I do perfectly when I say something in my natural voice and listen to my recording. I feel like there's not much resonance. I'm use more diaphragm, lower my placement, my voice. I feel like I'm forcing and tightening. I see tension on my face. Okay, so this kind of speaks to the last point that we were just mentioning. Thank you for the question here. So one, I'm glad you're doing recordings. This is why we do recordings, because when we talk, we think we're doing things perfectly, but then we listen to the recording and we realize, oh, I was not doing what I need to do. So this is why recordings are important. We don't know what we sound like without them. Beyond that, I think doing some of those exercises I just mentioned before, okay, so experimenting with different mouth positions, trying to understand how much air is moving through, okay? And then when you're doing the lower placement, trying to avoid adding tension. I think doing that exercise with a really open mouth, like just because that's going to give you an idea of what it feels like to have air moving through. Okay, and if you see that like this, like if you see a lot of exaggerated movements, if you see any of your muscles in your neck engaging, those are signs that we're tensing up. So you really watch your lips. The goal is to try to talk with minimal tension, minimal engagement of muscles through there. Okay, if you see tension in your face, there's a great chance you're going to be tightening things, and your voice isn't going to be achieving what you need it to do. So look at what your face is doing and your muscles are doing in your neck to see if you're tensing. Okay, I hope that's helpful. We want to try to avoid those elements of tension. Another question that came in. Thank you for sending this. I've been having a hard time with the phrase move on to. Keeps sounding a bit British or unnatural. If I reduce too much, it starts feeling sloppy. Any tips on which vowels or diphthongs I should work on? Thanks a lot. Well, thank you for sending the question. What I would say here is that move on to probably, if you say it in a sentence, it's probably not the stress part of your sentence. It's probably going to be whatever comes after it. Like move on to the next thing, or move on to socializing, move on to the ceremony. It's like whatever comes after it's most likely going to be receiving the stress. Okay, so this move on to part is actually going to probably be reduced, and there's a couple ways potentially it could be reduced. A lot of it having to do with the word to. The word to can be pronounced so many different ways. It can be pronounced to. That's not very common though. It can be pronounced t. Also not common because of that T. It can be pronounced like the. It could be pronounced do. And sometimes those fast D, flap T sounds will be whiter or weaker. It's like move on to, 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 move on to. There's so many different options, but the key is going to be the stress. So like let's say like move on to the next thing. I could say move on to the next thing. I could say move on to the next thing. I could say move on to the next thing. Move on to the next thing. All of those are different options, lots of different possibilities here. Without hearing your audio, it's hard to say for sure what's happening, and unfortunately I didn't get an audio for this. But there's also a good chance that if you're using one of those reductions, you might not actually be having a problem. No, it's important to see how people are responding. If you're saying it and people aren't giving you a negative reaction to it, then maybe you're okay, right? Maybe there is no issue. All right. The last thing I'd like to incorporate in these streams This is for people in the main Telegram group, so not the one that's sending audio files for the stream, but for people who get feedback from me every single day. Maybe you want to join them. I'm going to show you a recent challenge that we had. Hello to Alyssa, Mary Solely Blind. Thanks for being with us. All right, so this was a recent challenge I posted in the main Telegram group. So if you're a main Telegram group member, hopefully this helps you out. We're looking at A sounds, S sounds, and A sounds. Okay, but we had the letter N after the S, so it's going to sound like an. It's like A, an. So A, let's just do the vowels, and then we'll do each of these groups. Okay, it's like A, an, pain, pen, pan. A, an, vein, vent, van. A, an, rain, rent, ran. A, an, lane, lend, land. A, an, main, men, man. Okay, you want to be careful because of that and sound. When you have that that links to the letter N, it makes like an an. Okay, it's not on, or in, it's an. So it's an a sound, but your tongue's going to slide back a little bit. You want to do a heavy breath out of your nose right before the N. It's like an. It's like an, pan, an, van, an, ran, an, land, an, man. Okay. The other note I'll say is that for the A sound, A, make sure again as a diphthong, don't over tense at the end. So it's not A, it's just A. Remember in American English, we kind of condense diphthongs into a single sound. And the sound in this case will be A. As you link out with the letter N, try not to add an extra vowel. So it's not A-N, it's ain. It's like ain, pain, ain, vein, ain, rain, ain, lane, ain, main. So watching out for that as well. I'll tell you, Ganshim, great to see you, sir. All right, guys, I'm going to head out, but hey, thanks for hanging out with me. There's a lot of pronunciation resources out there in the world. So the fact you spent a little bit of your time here is appreciated. I will see you all tomorrow. We'll be back at 7:30 a.m. tomorrow. I hope you guys have a good day, have a good night, and a good afternoon. Take care.